Alright guys, so you guys have probably figured out by now I do a lot of random crap. Jack of a lot of trades, mistress of absolutely none. And recently I have picked up airbrushing. So if any of you guys are also picking up airbrushing, first thing is Amazon does occasionally have sales on packages. They may not be the most artistic or what have you, but for 65 bucks you can actually get airbrushes and compressors that will kind of get you started. First things first, I don't recommend the little cans of spray air because you will get frustrated. If you're like me, once you start, you don't stop. So, and those cans of spray air don't really last that long. But mainly, one of the things I've seen on the internet, because you know I learn everything from the internet, hello Stripe, is that there are a lot of people who talk about how to mix paints and what kind of paints to use. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I went in Hobby Lobby and looked at the actual airbrush paints. Yeah, that's air quotes. Doesn't work so well, does it, on camera? But airbrush paints, and they're like super expensive compared to what I like to use in my regular waking life, which is folk art. This one happens to be metallic because I'm a girly girl and I can't help but love the jewel-like colors. You can tell I've been kind of messing around today. So essentially, one of the things that I found out, because I like for you guys to learn from my mistakes, is that you don't want to mix your folk art craft paint with rubbing alcohol. There are people on the internet talking about mixing paints with alcohol. I think they must be using solvent-based paints, because what happens with certain colors, and Lilac Love is one of the worst ones for this, with certain colors, whenever you try to mix with rubbing alcohol, the paint actually gets very gritty, it gets very grainy, and then you can't really shoot it through your airbrush. Yellow Light is another one of those. I don't know if you can tell, all those little dark speckles around the lid are actually where stripes stop. Are actually where some of the paint, the pigments, have clumped together with the alcohol for some bizarre reason. There's some kind of chemical reaction there. So I just mix them with water as if I was doing a regular watercolor painting and go on with my bad self, and it seems to actually work fairly well most of the time. Now occasionally your metallic colors will actually, the glitter that they're using is occasionally kind of large for an airbrush needle to be able to get shot through. But most of the time it actually works. Now this particular one right here is a 0.3 needle, internal mix, double action, Dumaflachi. But it does not work so well for the acrylic paints. The needle size is slightly too small. A 0.35, however, my other little guy over here, forgive the mess, I've been a little busy. But I've got a 0.35 needle over here, and it seems to work just fine. It hardly ever clogs, unless I've tried mixing paints with alcohols again like a dummy. But it hardly ever clogs. A 0.35 needle, you can actually get the same kind of fine lines, almost pencil thin on occasion, depending on, of course, distance and how much air you're letting get through. And I'll go ahead and show you some of that here in a minute. Here you'll see spray cans. That's actually how I got started in airbrushing, because I found out I was allergic to the spray cans. Glory, glory, hallelujah. But, oh, fudge sickles. But if you look at some of these fine purple lines up here, that's actually watercolor with a 0.35 brush. And you can see my huge finger compared to the nice thin line. And that's just starting out. That's not even somebody who's been airbrushing for a long, long time and, oh, it's just a matter if they could use anything. This is a fairly new at it person who actually does need quite a bit of help and who actually can't use any airbrush on the market with the same amount of skill. So 0.35 does just fine for that. Something else I figured out is that if you're using these acrylic craft paints instead of watercolors, you can actually base coat. I just use poster board myself, but you can base coat your poster board, and I like to use one of these little guys right here. This being a regular old roller from the house painting aisle at Walmart. Or maybe this one came from Big Lots. Either way, you'll see it gives you fairly quick coverage. It's fairly big, right? But not so big that you can't actually maneuver it well. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you get this just like on walls. You'll get this kind of, maybe there it's kind of showing up a little bit, slightly mottled texture going on. This is going to be a redo of my sunset sky with cabin in the background. A few other quick tips about paint mixing and starting out with airbrushing. Sorry about the cat butt in the view. Poster paint from the dollar store. It actually seems to have very fine pigments in it, and if you mix it with enough water, it will actually shoot just fine. Watercolors that come out of the tube, like you can get those at Walmart that are kind of a gel instead of a little palette of dried up watercolor, those shoot very well. Now obviously if you're using poster board, I do recommend doing a base coat of acrylic because you're using water-based paint. And if you use the laminated side, it's not going to stick without a base coat. And then if you use the unlaminated side, because yeah, I've kind of messed around with both, it'll tend to wrinkle a little bit on occasion. Now, since I came here from spray can usage, one of the things that I continue to use daily are these little straight edges here. You can get these also from the house painting aisle at Walmart. Use them the same exact way you use them in spray cans, buddy. Just put them down. Try to get a little mist going. You'll spray toward there instead of down there. And if you spray toward there, the mist will fall in a straight line, which is a lot easier than trying to go very close to your canvas and get the fine hairline. So for starbursts and stuff like that, where I do want it to be a little diffused, I want it to be a little bit grainy, then these are actually the way to go. And I think that's pretty much it. You'll see I have a huge bowl of water for paint mixing. Mixing paint takes quite a bit of time in airbrushing. That said, I kind of feel like an old-fashioned alchemist, so I actually enjoy that part of the process. Don't know about you. Little round, I work in a nursing home, so actually, those of you who nurse will notice this is a colostomy cutting circle device here that we actually use for measuring the stoma before we cut out colostomy bags. But since we have like umpteen thousand of these, I brought a couple home to use as little stencils. You just hold it down real tight. If you want to make like a planet or a sun or a moon, you hold it down tight and you can get a good straight edge going on around it. If you pull it up a little bit, you'll get a little bit of a halo around it. One of the things that I tend to do, I go ahead and hold it tight for my first couple of rounds until I get the planet or the sun exactly the way I want it. And then on my last pass with the airbrush, I'll go ahead and kind of pull it up a little bit to get a very light, misty halo around it. Especially if it's the moon and I want to kind of imply it's humid. You know what witches say when there's a halo around the moon? It might be raining because it's humid. It's actually true. So that's pretty much it for now. You guys might notice laundry cart, $11 at Walmart, shoe boxes, $1 a piece. You can actually get your paints fairly well organized. And the other issue that I like to do here is go ahead, turn them upside down, because if you turn them right side up, they will wind up clumping at the bottom. And then put a little dab of paint on the bottom, and that way you can actually see what you're going to be getting. And be aware when you mix them with water, it's going to be a little bit lighter. It's going to take several passes to actually get it as dark as you want it. And as you may notice, make sure it's not in the living room or any other room you want to allow people in, because this is the kind of stuff that happens in this room. Alright, happy crafting, guys. Hope this helped at all.